as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture, and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019, and it's one full week of activities, vibes, and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth. And it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd, under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Minister's Address. October 27th, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concerts. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. And on November 2nd, it's National Youth Awards. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
Spiceword Literary Festival. This is a live book reading and poetry slam session. So we ask that you participate in the event if you care to. We have books that are available from our local authors, published authors. And I'm speaking basically now to those in the food court. We haven't really gone on live yet, but we will be going live on television shortly. So I'd like you to certainly travel that journey with us. As you know, television picks up a lot of the external noises that may be surrounding the microphones. So we appreciate, we don't want to stifle your conversations, but certainly be aware that we're being brought live on television. And we'd appreciate having you with us here this afternoon. Thank you. Are we ready, guys? They give you the mic? Welcome all on GIS Television. We're coming to you live from the Spiceland Mall Food Court for once another year. It's the Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. We're here with the exercise of the book reading, which is going to be live. You're going to be hearing from different published authors and writers here this afternoon. And also Poetry Slam. We have an open mic as well, offering persons the opportunity to come and read or recite their poems. I'm Sherma Wells. I'm not your host for the afternoon. I'm going to introduce that person to you a little later on. But in all formalities, we want to extend an invitation to our chairman of the Grenada Cultural Foundation. It is a Grenada Cultural Foundation initiative to welcome you and just basically offer a few remarks on this very important festival. Please welcome Mrs. Curl Hostialik.
Good evening, good afternoon to everyone. I trust that you are all in good spirits, even if outside looks a little dreary, and that you're all ready to hear all of the wonderful pieces of works that our authors have to share with you today. So a little bit about what's been happening, right? That's my role today. So, the Aunty Tek Literary Festival is of paramount importance to our cultural landscape, offering a wonderful opportunity and platform to our published authors, poets, and budding writers. Our local writers bring to life stories of our people and embraces the uniqueness of our everyday lives. From stories of Fedon to revolution, many are told within the pages of their books. This important festival honors the memory of the late Thelma Phillip, one of Grenada's renowned folklorists. Aunty Tek, as she was fondly known, has left us a legacy of storytelling and dancing that has impacted the lives of many of our dramatists and actors even today. She's known best for capturing vividly the stories of Bear and Nancy. I'm sure many of us would remember those while we were growing up as young ones, right, from our grandmothers and our aunties and uncles. We are totally and absolutely honored today to continue keeping her legacy alive with this 3-day festival. The festival is being held for the 9th year this year, and we are so very proud of it at the Grenada Cultural Foundation. It started in 2010 with the objectives to highlight and showcase the work of Grenadian authors and to undertake developmental activities that would support and encourage their work. I see with me today, I have one of the directors on the Grenada Cultural Foundation, Reverend Harold Andrews, and he will be with us sharing one of his poems today, which is very deep and very intricate in terms of in terms of our history and who we are as part of the revolution and his coming home. So you're going to hear from him later, apart from many even younger ones that we have here today. To date, we have identified over 70 Grenadian published authors here at home and in the diaspora. And I am sure that there are many, many more today at home. You know, reading and writing is so very important to everything. I know that, you know, with some of the little kids, they love their electronics and they're always on the digital devices, but at the end of the day, stories are created through writing. And what we see when we look at these different pages and the web pages, somebody has to put it together to create that imagery. So no matter where we look, the little ones and the big ones alike, writing is so very important. To recap our 3 days, on Thursday, we went to some of the primary schools in St. Andrew, St. Patrick, and St. David's to engage the children in reading sessions, and they were well received. Now, you know, when you go to the children and the children see that, you know, they have new people around that are going to be teaching them different things, they get so very excited. And when it is that they learn and they read different pieces and become integrated and interactive, it becomes such a memorable and such a joy. And the authors reported on that on Thursday. And we hope to continue working very closely with the schools as well. On Thursday evening, now that was dynamic. I was there. I can say I was there. If you missed going to the literary evening on Friday night, where you would have heard, it was a nice published, where we had published authors who, at a social gathering at Port Louis, and they would have provided opportunity to listen to their new works and their old works and the works that are still relevant today. And I trust me, if you missed it Thursday evening, please don't miss it next year. It was actually very, very dynamic. It was exciting, and trust me, they had some clicks and things going on in there. Hopefully today you get some clicks too, right? But I tell you what, so, you know, you have some stuff coming to be indulged in. Last night, well, you know what happens in the nighttime in Grenville, right? So we took Aunty Tek up to Grenville, and we held our bonfire night. And we had participation in the traditions of ring games, those of you who remember those, but we want the little ones to come out and to do some more ring games with us. More storytelling. We had Auntie Pamela there with us talking about the different stories, and Nancy and otherwise. Dancing and, of course, drumming, which is part of who we are. The rhythm is always here with us, right? So we want you to come out. We know it was a fantastic time yesterday evening with the kids. And, you know, it's really great memories for us old fogies, right? I'm getting up there as well. But either way, you know, let us all continue to enjoy who we are as a people through our lives and our culture. Today, and finally on today, we are here. We are with the final event. And this is definitely the highlight of public writing right here at the Spiceland Mall. You will hear from our authors and the poets, and you have the opportunity to tell your story or poem via the open mic. You see this nice, wonderful open mic here. So we know you walk around with your devices. You never know, you may have that story that you would have written last night. Please come along and share with us as well. We would want to listen and to hear with you. Finally, we are pleased to highlight our authors, budding writers, poets, and we hope you find the time today to stay with us, to indulge in our great Grenadian books of your choice, many of which are laid out here on the table. Please indulge in them, please write, please support our authors, and I trust that you will stay with us, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the wonderful overview. Now you have, in a nutshell, what has been happening for years, and especially this year. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you on television, without further ado, it is indeed my pleasure to reveal our host for this evening. She's none other, the GBN Morning Lady, a lady who would have seen, and sometimes people call me by her name. I don't know why. Maybe you can determine that. Nevertheless, please, I hand you over to the competent and capable host, none other than Brenda Batiste. Brenda?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. It is the time for the live book reading and the poetry slam. Thank you very much, Auntie Shoma, as I like to call you, and just to let you know that, yes, people take me for you as well, and that is quite an awesome thing. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We'd like to welcome those of you viewing on GIS television, and those of you with us on Mikey Live. Mikey have quite a following and an audience there. Those of you on Nazim Benjamin's Party Grenada, welcome. And of course, the GIS streaming as well, we welcome you. Those of you live with us here at the Spiceland Mall, thank you for being with us. We'd like to say special thanks to the Spiceland Mall, who has hosted this activity for all the years that the Grenada Cultural Foundation has had it. The GIS, thank you very, very much. Quartz Grenada Limited, thank you. Art and Soul, thank you very much. Grenada Tourism Authority and the National Lotteries Authority, thank you. It is my honor this afternoon to maintain some decorum as the program unfolds. What kind of decorum? We're just going to have a good time, right? As we reveal our authors and, of course, poets here at this literary festival. It is my great honor to introduce the featured author of the afternoon. Roger Byer was born on Grenada, of course, and for a number of years he was recognized as one of Grenada's best competition cyclists. In 1968, after graduating from secondary school, he enlisted in the U.S. Army. 1 year after his enlistment, he was deployed overseas where he experienced combat in both the Vietnam and Cambodian wars. He spent his 1-year stint in Southeast Asia serving as a combat medic with an infantry line company of the 1st Air Cavalry Division. After completing his military service, he attended Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in the U.S., compliments of the GI Bill education program, and obtained the required certification to qualify as a commercial pilot. He worked as a pilot in the Caribbean for about 7 years, first with a charter company, Tropical Air Services, then with the regional airline Liat, before returning to Grenada in 1980 to fly Prime Minister Maurice Bishop's personal executive aircraft. Roger is married to Ermine Byer, has 2 grown daughters, one of whom is Stacey Byer, a renowned Grenadian artist and author. He still lives on this island of Grenada, of course, where he works in the field of real estate, and when not practicing his writing skills, he just hovers and look at the news and so on. His first book, Tattooed Memories, about his experience as a combat medic in the Vietnam War, was published in 2014. It rose to number 3 on the Amazon International Bestsellers list in the category of stories from the Cold War. His second book, Granny's Bathroom, published in 2017, is a compilation of 15 short stories that are primarily based on Mr. Byer's experience as a young boy growing up in the area of the town of St. George in Grenada. Granny's Bathroom also contains stories that are purely fictional. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our featured author for the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival, Mr. Roger Byer.
Hello.
Hello, we're here.
Okay.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Bayer. It's a pleasure. First of all, congratulations. Of course, I remember in 2014, I had just started in the field of media a year after, and you were one of my first literary interviews. And I think you've become a fan now. So, thank you so much.
Well, Brenda, I really enjoyed your interview. You're a professional, and I'm in your hands again today, and I feel very comfortable for that.
You are in safe hands, as just to borrow from Allstate. The Aunty Tek Literary Festival, as I'm sure you have observed over the years, the work of the Grenada Cultural Foundation to highlight our authors and, of course, people in literary work. Just your thoughts on the festival and what it means to our community of Grenada.
Well, the festival is big, especially for me. I belong to a group of authors. Recently, only a few months ago, the Grenadian published authors, we formed a group specifically to take Grenadian writers and poets out of the shadows, to bring us out into the sunlight, to let people know we have writers and poets, some very young poets, who have work, a lot of it sitting on the shelf at home. So the Grenadian Cultural Foundation inviting us and embracing us, I must say we're very appreciative. This is the fourth event that we are taking part in 1 week. When you're a writer or a poet, sometimes you don't see activity for a year.
All right. So you've had all the activity that you can have in probably 7 years in 1 week. All right. So kudos to the Grenada Cultural Foundation for that. Now to you, I know you don't like talking about yourself, Mr. Bayer, but we cannot let this day pass. As I read through your bio here, that after going through, you had combat in both the Vietnam and Cambodian wars. That is very interesting, and I'm sure many people will be surprised by this.
Well, first of all, I have to say, everything you see in the movies about war and combat, forget it. It's nothing like the reality of war. As a young man, I was attracted to the military. I wanted to be a soldier. I fulfilled my dream. I served in Vietnam at the height of the Vietnam War, when it was really bad. I spent a year in the jungle, triple canopy jungle that makes Granitang look like a footpath. The mountains of Cambodia, with men who we depended on each other every day to live, to see the next day. The experiences were fantastic. There were also periods of laughter, believe it or not. I made it through the war, came back home. I think I was more fortunate than most because I had a family who embraced me. I met the lady who later became my wife, who helped me along, and had a family of my own. So I was able to weather the PTSD thing, I think, better than most.
Right.
But it's an experience that even after writing my book helped a lot.
Right.
I think it put to bed a lot of nightmares. I sort of cleared my chest of the things that I'd been through, and I'd got it all out now in print. And then I think the fact that the book has been so well received, and people have been very generous in their commendations of the book. A friend told me one day, he said, "Roger, I felt when the mosquito bit you in Vietnam." So I said, well, thank you for that.
Right.
But Tattooed Memories, my story, I tell people it's not my life story because I've done quite a few things in my life.
Right.
But it is certainly the story of my life,
Oh, it is.
which there is some difference too. It was an amazing, my old company commander wrote the preface for Tattooed Memories.
Yes.
He's a retired career soldier, full colonel. He wrote the preface for my book. You can imagine how that makes me feel.
I know.
Yeah. And so the book is doing really well. You mentioned before it reached the number 3 on the international bestseller list. Of course,
It's remarkable.
being a writer, again, all of this is relatively new to me. I put out 2 books in the space of 5 years. I have people asking me to sign the book for them and all of that, so it's a whole new ball game.
Right.
But people have been really, really kind in their remarks.
Wonderful.
And one thing I have to say before I stop talking about that is, amazingly, Tattooed Memories is a war story.
Mm-hmm.
It's about shooting, and it's the type of book you would think boys would be attracted to and men. Well, I'll tell you something. A lot of women who have read that book have stopped me in the supermarket and say, Roger or Mr. Bayer, I read your war book. It's the first war book I read, and I love it.
Yeah, it's great. There is some things in it that, of course, women will take to. I must say, I read it twice. Yeah, I read it twice, and it's one of my favorites. Today, being October the 19th, I'm not going to miss the opportunity here to ask you about your being the pilot for Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, as you were tasked with flying his personal executive aircraft. I know this must make you feel a bit maybe emotional, and if you don't want to share, it's up to you. But just in a nutshell, it is October 19th, and you were his personal pilot, and it's on this day he was assassinated. Just talk to us about, how you worked with him, and do you intend to write a book about that journey?
Well, Brenda, let me start with your last question. Your last question is a very popular question for me that is posed to me all the time. There are a group of people who, every time they see me, they say, Roger, when is the third book coming out? And the next thing they say is, you know what you have to write about? After a while, I started telling people two things. One, I don't know what I'm going to write about next. And two, what third book? When I tell them what third book, they all roll their eyes. My first book took me 12 years to put out. My second book took me 14 years to publish. At the launch of my first book, a friend said, well, Roger, it took you so long to put out the first two. I don't know if I'll be alive when the third one comes out. But back to your question, Brenda. Obviously, being Maurice Bishop's personal pilot is personal. Maurice is not only my boss. I left Liat to come back and fly his plane in Grenada. He was also a dear friend of mine. He is still one of the people in my life that I've most admired. I have been around him at times when we have landed in Cuba at 4 o'clock in the morning, and Fidel Castro has his entire cabinet lined up on the ramp to meet Maurice. I've met Daniel Ortega. I've met Baltasar in Suriname. We have had very intimate times on that little airplane, playing cards or having breakfast together. I don't take active part in the remembrances and celebrations because, as you put your finger on it, it's still personal for me. And a day may come, or may not come, when I may put pen to paper and recount what we went through. At this point in time, so many years later, I'm still not ready for it.
Right. We respect that, and thank you so much for sharing. And I think, yes, in many ways, we are still not ready, but we have to start to make baby steps. Yeah. Thank you. So we move to Tattooed Memories. So tell us the headspace, and do you have a favorite part of the book that you would like to share with us this afternoon?
Well, when you have a book, I don't know about favorite part because it's like asking me which of my children.
To get you to choose something.
Which one of my children that I like better? Tattooed Memories is even easier for me to read something from, believe it or not, than my 15 short stories.
Okay.
Because the short stories are 8 pages long, and if you read from them, you have to come to a conclusion.
Right.
But fortunately, in Tattooed Memories, I have a couple 2-page chapters that I can read from.
Yeah.
And I came here today because at the Port Louis event we had, which Shoma spoke about, which was really great. And again, I thank the Cultural Foundation for that. At Port Louis, I had a friend read something for me. So I kind of chickened out there. But I think I'm cornered here, so I'll read.
It's just you and I.
I'll read a short account here from, well, I have 3 short pieces. I'll just, let me put on my eyes.
Sure.
Now, a lot of people believe that anytime you read about a book that is a war-based book, that everything is shooting and dying, but really no. There are other parts to a book about soldiers that it doesn't entail shooting. I'm going to read from chapter 6, a chapter that I call Maternal Instinct and the Leather Talisman. It was my second leave home to Grenada. I'd been in the United States Army for a year. I'd served at Forts Jackson, South Carolina, and Sam Houston in Texas. My orders were to ship out in 30 days' time to the Republic of Vietnam for a 1-year tour of combat duty. I was on my mandatory pre-overseas 1-month leave before taking up my duties in a hostile environment. Nobody knew this except the Department of the Army and me. Or so I thought. Ever heard of maternal instinct?
Yes.
Ever heard of maternal instinct? 15 minutes after arriving home, I greeted my parents and settled down to have a drink and catch up. My stepfather, Uncle Len, came up to me and said, "Roger, what's wrong with your mother? What did you tell her?" I replied, "I don't know." "And nothing." "Are you going to Vietnam? Did you tell her this?" Again I answered, "Yes, but no." My mother, a strong lady all her life, had sensed that something was different this time round on my latest visit home, without a word being said about the war. As a result of this, she had retreated to her room and was in fact lying on a bed in prostration. She knew. She just knew. She had felt the emotion. I was probably trying too hard to spare her. At that time, being 20 years old and having no clue of what a shooting war was all about, I was not unduly scared. Apprehensive and excited, yes, but frightened, no. I should not have been giving off any alarming vibes to anyone, but my mother must have sensed an understatement or felt an undercurrent, some kind of disquietude coming from me. Later, I would learn to live with fear as an ever-present, choking and menacing shadow that had to be shunted to one side. If not, it would cripple one's ability to function, making you a prime candidate for the very doom that is so accurately presaged for you. My parents had a good friend called Oswald Boxer. We called him Uncle Ozzy. Of course, this being the Caribbean, everybody had a name. He was a wise older man, something of a seer, the type of guy who read the dregs of tea leaves at bottom of cups at parties. He was soft-spoken and deeply respected in our community. He read extensively and was a good conversationalist on a wide variety of subjects. One evening, sitting on the veranda of our home at Belmont, overlooking the yacht marina, and having a drink with my parents and a group of friends that included Uncle Ozzy, he said to me, "Roger, I have something here for you." He handed me a triangular piece of leather with a prominent stitch where it had been sewn together. It had a hole cut through the leather to accommodate a chain. He said, "Wear this talisman around your neck all the while that you are over there in Vietnam." I thanked him for the token and said that I would wear it. "Thank you, Uncle Ozzy." "This is my going away gift to you, Roger. Your name is written on a piece of paper that has been placed inside of the leather pouch, surrounded by other things that will protect you over there." Uncle Ozzy then turned calmly to my mother, put his arms around her shoulders and said, Frankly, don't worry, Barbara. He'll come back home. I guarantee you this. There was not a dry eye on our veranda after that statement. He said no more in the way that self-assured people do. I respected the silence and thanked him again for my gift. I wore that talisman and the same chain that I used to secure my dog tags for the entire year I spent in both Vietnam and Cambodia. I didn't wear it after that, but I kept it in a safe place with all my other cherished mementos. I never opened it, the leather pouch, to see what was inside it. I have never cared to know its contents. I had many close calls, both in Vietnam and Cambodia, but I returned home whole and relatively unscathed after serving my one-year tour. I came back alive, just as Uncle Ozzy had promised my mother I would. There were quite a few instances when people died close to or around me in combat, sometimes in my very arms because of my job as a medic. The talisman was always there with me. I wore it every day, as Uncle Ozzy said I should. Its protective powers, who's to say? I trusted Uncle Ozzy, as I have always known him to be a man of his word. He had said I would return from the war before I went overseas. And because it was also my intention to do just that, I took that belief with me into harm's way and nurtured it for all the time that I spent over there.
Wow, interesting. What a story. Do you still have the talisman?
I still have it at home. I think one of my daughters, Stacy, has told me that she's inherited it, so I guess it'll pass on. I have it home in a drawer.
Right.
I never opened it. It looks the same that it did those many years ago,
Right.
and it's just sitting in my drawer there.
Wow. Intriguing. Reading excerpts from the book Tattooed Memories, or feature authored here at the 9th Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. We're coming to you live from the Spiceland Mall. When we come back, we have more with our featured author and, of course, other authors, and a live poetry slam and reading next from the Spiceland Mall. We'll be right back.
Grenada, it's coming as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019, and it's one full week of activities, vibes and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth. And it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, Island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Ministers Address. October 27th, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concerts. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. And on November 2nd, it's National Youth Awards. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
Welcome back to the 9th Annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Festival, live book reading and featured authors event. We're coming to you here live from the Spiceland Mall. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm Brenda Batiste. We're here with our featured author, Mr. Roger Bayer. Of course, there are other authors, lots of publications here for viewing and on sale as well. This event, of course, has been piloted by, not piloted, but brought to you by the Grenada Cultural Foundation for the last 9 years. We'd like to say really, really special thanks to those who have come on board to make this event possible. The Spiceland Mall, thank you for hosting us here. GIS, Courts Grenada Limited Art and Soul, the Grenada Tourism Authority, the GTA, and the National Lotteries Authority. We thank you very, very much. We're also streaming live on Mikey Live. That's a Facebook page of Mikey Hutchinson, Mikey Live, Nazim Benjamin's Party Grenada, and on GIS. We continue with the program. It's a pleasure to bring to you our first poet. It's in the spoken word. We hear an open mic, and we're going to hear from our poet, Dante Wilkes. So Dante, step to the mic.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi. So yeah, this is basically about what I see some parents doing with their children, and like the way they discipline their children. I kind of see an issue with it. So there are other ways to discipline your children than just beating them all the time. So this is my, I guess, response or little speech towards that, maybe. Trying to make a difference, I guess. But yeah, it's called Like Parent, Unlike Child. So yeah. There was one thing I always witness, but never understand. How parents, instead of thinking of solutions, just want to reprimand. I'm not saying every parent is part of smothering a child's expression. It's just, more often than not, I see cries for help met with aggression. They may defend hitting a child, saying they were causing a public scene, but it never crossed the parent's mind what the child's outburst could mean. Children, most of the time, are not going out of their way to embarrass you, and society would be better if you saw the consequences of what you do. As every action has a consequence, even those of a caregiver, but lots of people are unaware of the hurt that they can deliver. Building children so used to making the sounds of silence, it is no wonder that they grow into adults who don't report violence. That 5-year-old offspring could just want their parents' attention, but when that translates into anger, it provides some apprehension. The ones that are supposed to care for them have no concern. This is a prime example of being able to only teach what you learn. The parents themselves grew up hearing, "Spare the rod, spoil the child," feeling the pain of being beaten whenever their parent got riled. Now a parent themselves, they refuse to address their own trauma, believing they're okay. With their trauma unaddressed, the cycle of pain and abuse comes to stay. Always hearing, I got licks and I turned out fine. But if that was the case, you would know when to draw the line. Settling differences in ways both of you understand, with an awareness that not every argument needs the raising of your hand. With that said, sweater, one that parents wear to combat the frigid parts of their existence, handed down to their children to show the futility in their resistance. It is a bit oversized now, but they will grow in the coming years. Some will abandon the sweater early, while others will get lost in their fears. It is bad that the treatment of our nation's children is in this state, as the truth is they are the key to any future we wish to create. If we have any desire to make positive changes that last, we must stop holding on to the sins of our over-disciplinary past. Finally, the most important thing for making abuse culture go away is to stand up and change the behaviors of the present day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dante. Very powerful indeed. So you think more conversations, more level-headed conversations is required, more than just reprimand as the solution?
Yeah, basically, like just if your child annoys you, like it is an annoying thing to have a child. If you have a child, they will run about the place, you just get frustrated and frustrated and frustrated, but you don't have to beat them. Because if you beat them, they're gonna start to internalize that being beaten is the solution to a problem. So it could be a violence, they'll internalize that. Or if another person becomes violent to them, they could just be like, okay, my parent does this, so it becomes normal for them. So they wouldn't report it in the future. So it has many issues.
Right. So beaten as a positive and beaten as a negative.
Yeah, it's like, if you want to beat your child, you can, right? But if you, you shouldn't, but if you are going to, always, every time you beat them, explain to them why you're doing it. Because some people, they will just beat their child. They'll just get vexed, beat the child, and then just walk away. So the child's just left thinking, okay, I did something wrong, I don't know what it is, and you beat me. Therefore, any error I make, I get beaten for it. So they can become a perfectionist, basically.
Right. In terms of consequences, though, how do you think, in your mind, as you see it, based on all the strong points that you've just articulated in your poem, the spoken word, consequences as you see it, what do you think is the best medium? Do you think it's a one-size-fit-all? Do you think it's a kind of a family unit? Do you think it's the types of individual? How do you see what mediums should be used?
I see it as every solution, like every situation, not an isolated situation. Because it's not just the one parent beating the one child. There's like a societal thing there as well. Like it's not just the two of them. It's what that parent was taught when they were a child, what that child learns from their environment, and then basically the media saying, okay, I'm beating you, or you shouldn't get beaten, or this is abuse, this is discipline, the thin line between that. So I think it's just everything kind of intermixing together. So it should be, I guess, addressed from many different angles to solve the one problem, opposed to just parents are bad, children are good. It's not that simple, basically.
Right. So your one final word to parents and children?
Yeah. My one final word to parents and children would be, if I had to put one single word, it would probably just be patience, basically. Just, I know it could be stressful. I know you want to be, like you feel restless or something, but do not beat the child, because that one beating may relieve your stress at the time, but it could ripple on in that child's life for years and years and years to come. So just kind of take a breath, walk outside, do something you enjoy, just like relax first, and then deal with it with a clear head, opposed to being angry and beating them in the rage kind of thing.
What about love as well? Because love could be both. You can discipline with love, and you can love with love.
True. But I would say if you're going to love somebody or love your child, you should love them with just like pure and simple love. Like, don't be beating them, or I'm beating you with love, and then you're just beating them.
Right.
Because then that could like ripple over into abusive relationship.
Right.
They could grow up and get with somebody and they're like, oh, I'm beating you because I love you. And then they'll just be like, okay, fine. That's what my parent did, so I'm going to take the lash.
All right.
So, yeah.
Lots to think about. Thank you very much from the mouth of young men. Thank you, Dante. Let's say it for Dante. I'm sure lots of parents were listening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You have something else you want to share with us?
Yeah, man, always.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I thought it was just that one piece. You have the mic. Go right ahead.
All right, cool. So this one is about the revolution, Canadian Revolution, obviously, because I believe people do not talk about it enough. And given that Thanksgiving is just now, I don't really celebrate it as a holiday because I don't really see much to give thanks for, but that's a whole different discussion, right? So yeah, Thanksgiving is just now, but you see people talk about the revolution in times of Thanksgiving, or in times of when they talk about Morris Bishop, or they talk about independence. Only in these specific times of the year you hear about revolution, and all throughout the year, it's just forgotten about. It's a shadow in the back of your head. You may hear like a date here, a date there, 1974, and you just call upon years, and then that's it. No real, I guess, revolution, or like revolution that they think about is just back then, not now. Us, we can't do a revolution, that's back then, that's them. But then all of us can do revolution, I think, personally. So it's like if you're unhappy with a situation or a societal, I guess, situation or place, you have the power to change it, but you can't do it for yourself. You have to get people with the same mindset that see the same problem and then come together and kind of do it. But yeah, I'm not trying to run for politics right now, I'm just saying. So that's a whole different discussion. On to the piece. All right, it's called What Makes a Grenadian Revolutionary? All right. What does revolution look like through your eyes? Would you call the people beside you right now enemies or allies? Look around you and tell me what type of people you see. Will they notice something wrong and have the courage to disagree? Could you count on them to march with boots on the ground, forward ever to fight against an imperialistic sound? Personally, I'm not completely sure that I would know, because it is said that people always reap what they sow. Yet the seeds of our powerful and strong nation were sown, but they reaped a leader who treated government as their throne. Bias and intimidation were easy tactics to enforce silence, and if those did not work, it was not a far stretch to use violence. People hold many different perspectives to this revolution story, attributing some people to its downfall and others to its glory. The melting pot of opinion shrouds the truth in an air of mystery, as we choke on how many significant parts are left unclear in our history. As if history is told by the victors, who knows what was truly right? So that shared experience should not cause us to divide, but instead to unite. Revolutions and revolutionaries do not materialize out of thin air. They are the response to conditions that a people cannot bear. Environments weaved with the heartbeat of enough is enough, becoming the flame that empowers them to call their oppressors bluff. And if you view education and medicine as a human right, you too would understand part of the reason to stand and fight. So here we are, years after that revolutionary point in time, where some see the events as justice while others see unforgivable crime. Whether you think we shouldn't have had a revolution in the first place, or that the fact we haven't had another one by now is a disgrace, the people of this beautiful nation are all products of that revolution. So let us march forward ever away from conflict and focus on solution. Thank you very much.
Very much, Dante Wilkes. Let's hear it for Dante Wilkes.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And very, very, very relevant on this day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
We continue with our live book reading, and we would like to invite to the mic one of my favorite Grenadian authors, Mr. David Ambrose. So, Mr. Ambrose, I don't know how many of you have read White Spice. If you have not, you should absolutely get your copy. And of course, there's another one. It slipped my mind now. The other one he did.
That time in Bogles.
Yeah, that time in Bogles, all right? Of course, he is one of our, and Mr. Ambrose has been very, very, very instrumental in ensuring that our publishers and authors get together. Has been doing lots and lots of work over the last couple of years. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have him again with us this afternoon. He's not the featured author, but he will always be featured in Grenada's literary works, Mr. David Ambrose.
Thank you. So I have two books published in print, That Time in Bogles and White Spice. I also have a short story that's published online that I'm going to read from this evening, and that one is called Zone 1. And Zone 1 follows a motor officer, a traffic motor officer, as he patrols. This area is Zone 1. You know, you take a Zone 1 bus to come to Grandans. So we're going to see hear about his adventures. It's available on Amazon only as an ebook. Soon it will join other short stories in print. So I'm going to read some of his experiences, or at least one of his experiences. The protagonist is Corporal Louise, and he is a motor officer. He rides around on a BMW motorbike, and he does his stuff, trying to keep the peace, trying to regulate the traffic on the Grandlands main road. So I'm going to start where he rides down Morris Bishop Highway. Right. What the hell? Corporal Louise muttered, and he lifted the visor of his helmet. About half a kilometer down the Grandin stretch of the highway, a Toyota midroof bus climbed the 0.3 meter high and 1 meter wide median to cross from the southbound to the northbound lanes. Vehicles coming from further south slowed. Two cars that had accelerated out of the True Blue roundabout now had to quickly decelerate. Screeching tires echoed up and down the stretch. Ordinarily, vehicles had to travel all the way to the True Blue roundabout at the south end of the stretch before driving back up the northbound side. The white bus stopped halfway up the northbound side, and its driver stared at the motor officer as the sleek patrol bike sped by. Louise did a 180 at the True Blue roundabout, and with siren blaring, headed for the passenger vehicle, which had now pulled away from the bus stop. The bus eventually stopped a few meters from the Republic Bank roundabout. Corporal Louise spoke into his radio as he parked his bike behind the bus. Taking his time to dismount, he went through his routine of removing his helmet, resting it on his seat, and extracting his citation book from his saddlebag. He approached the front of the bus from the left side using the concrete sidewalk. Driver, what kind of stunt you just pulled there? Louise addressed the bearded busman. Mirrored sunglasses stared back at Corporal Louis as the driver stroked his beard and sucked his teeth loudly between clenched teeth and pursed lips in a stoops. Man, what you talking about? Louis glared at the man through his own shades and shook his head. Please turn off your engine and hand me your driver's license and proof of insurance. The conductor and a few passengers protested loudly, but the driver complied with the order. All your police only there to harass people, remarked the conductor. We have to make our money too. The driver shoved his credentials towards the police officer. Louis inspected them, wishing they were invalid in some way. No such luck, he thought, after inspecting the documents for a full 2 minutes. Officer, I late for work, shouted a young lady. Driver, please drop all your passengers, Corporal Louis commanded. The driver's bottom jaw dropped. You serious? The officer's impassive visage answered the question. The driver reluctantly gestured to his conductor to let the passengers disembark. A few people shot some curse words towards Corporal Louis. He made a mental note of their faces. Mr. Joseph, Corporal Louis said to the bus driver, I just witnessed you commit a serious traffic offense a few minutes ago. Or you could just drive up on the median to come back up the road. You see me drive up on the median? Joseph's voice increased in volume. You could have never seen that. The conductor backed up his driver. Well, I did see you. Please step out of the vehicle and onto the sidewalk. You too, conductor. The conductor, a tall, muscular young man, let loose a string of expletives as he got out of the bus, insulting Corporal Louis and the entire Royal Grenada police force. The police officer looked at the angry man and was glad he had called for backup. The conductor would have to spend some time in the cell and pay a fine for using offensive language and assaulting an officer. Conductor, we have to take you in, Louis said. He turned to Joseph. Driver, please control your guy. Officer, you're really unfair, Joseph replied. All of us trying to eat our food. You know how the economy is already. That does not give you the right to break the law, Corporal retorted. You put a lot of people's lives in danger. The road is not yours alone. The police officer paused for a moment before continuing. I have to report you for dangerous driving. In fact, I arrested you for that. And I'm also reporting you for not completing your bus route. That sticker on your windshield says you have to reach Calais to complete the route. Joseph stoops. So just for that little move, you're arresting me? Driver, you didn't notice how hard a couple cars had to jam brakes when you come down on the northbound side? But no accident take place. I don't know why all the police can't leave us busmen alone. Corporal Louis chuckled as he wrote in his little black book. Mr. Joseph, you will get a summons within 14 days to appear in court to answer charges of dangerous driving and for failing to complete your route. The conductor paced the sidewalk alongside the bus, breathing heavily, clenching his fists and contracting his biceps and pecs. Corporal Louis eyed him suspiciously. He placed his right hand on the butt of his sidearm. Conductor, please sit in the bus, the police ordered. The conductor froze in mid-step and regarded the policeman with a frown. The bus driver's eyes swept back and forth between his conductor and Corporal Louis. Justin, just do what the officer say, eh? The driver said. I ain't want no trouble here today. Justin threw his head back and screamed, then silently sat in the bus. A marked police car with flashing lights approached them, driving against the north-flowing traffic. Corporal, you need some help with them fellas? A constable jumped out of the sedan while a burly sergeant squeezed out of the driver's seat. I arrested the conductor here for using obscene and threatening language towards an officer, Corporal Louise replied. And the driver is also under arrest for dangerous driving. Officer Thomas, deal with the traffic, please. The sergeant ordered the constable before consulting with Louise. Corporal, what the driver do that's so dangerous that they have to arrest him? Louise reported that he had witnessed about 20 minutes ago, when the bus crossed illegally from the south to the north lanes, and the effect that maneuver had on the flow of traffic. The sergeant agreed with the motor officer. The sergeant agreed that the motor officer had sufficient grounds to arrest the bus driver. The flashing lights of the police car attracted quite a bit of attention. Cars slowed and pedestrians snapped pictures with their mobile devices. Buses honked their horns loudly as they crawled past the scene. Some conductors cursed at the police officers while others jeered at Justin and Joseph. Corporal Louise knew that social media would be alive tonight with pictures and videos of this scene. Conductor, stand up and put your hands behind your back, the sergeant commanded. Corporal Louise informed the bus operators about the reasons for their arrest. Mr. Joseph, I will drive back with you in your bus to the station, the sergeant said. We follow in the police car. And make sure you turn on the AC. A few minutes later, Justin sat in the back seat of the air-conditioned police car heading towards the South St. George police station in Montrouge. Corporal Louise resumed patrolling Zone 1. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambrose. You're reading there, and we're seeing it,
Oh, you're seeing
we're
that?
hearing it, we're relating to it.
Nice,
It
nice.
is so every day.
Every day. We experience these things every day on the road.
Yes.
yes.
You sound like you're a live witness for an incident.
I wonder, boy. You never know, eh?
No, this is absolutely brilliant. This
Thank
is
you.
absolutely
Thank you,
brilliant.
thank you.
And I'm sure it's probably something even the RGPF can use as they
Yes.
coach the motoring officers
Yeah,
on the road.
In fact, I shared it with a sergeant in the traffic department,
Right.
and he thought I was describing some actual things that happened. He said, how you know that happened? It's like, nah, I just make up stuff, man. Well,
That is really art imitating life. It's
Correct,
really
correct.
brilliant.
That
It
is
is
true.
it is really brilliant. All right, and of course that's you. So
That's-
we're going to be seeing more of those kind of works from you.
yes, I'm compiling a few short stories. I hope to put them together in an anthology in the future. This one, Zone 1, is available online on Amazon.
Okay.
So if you do a search for Zone 1, D.E. Ambrose, it's available only as an e-copy, only as an e-book,
Okay,
not
right.
on print as yet.
Right. Oh, so it's ebook on Amazon.
Ebook on
D.E.
Amazon.
Zone 1.
Zone 1, yes.
That's
yes.
a hot zone.
Yep, yeah, seriously hot zone, eh?
Well, we are in a hot zone at the
Correct,
Spiceland
is
Mall
right.
this afternoon.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Ambrose.
you,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it. And again, all the great work that you're doing
you very
to have the
much. Thanks for
publishers
having
and
me.
authors organized.
Thanks. All right.
Appreciate it. Let's hear it from Mr. David E. Ambrose. All right. And so we're here live. Yes, we are in Zone 1. And that is in Grand Anse. We're coming to you live from the food court at the Spiceland Mall. And we'd like to say thank you to Spiceland Mall for hosting us here. It is the 9th annual Aunty Tek Literary Word Festival. We call it the Spiceword Festival. We take a break. We'll be right back.
as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019, and it's one full week of activities, vibes and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth. And it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, Island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Minister's Address. October 27th, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concerts. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. And on November 2nd, it's National Youth Awards. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
Hope rides on the rays of the sun here. So too does the resilience of the people. But in the battle against climate change, will hope and resilience be enough when the lives of those who contribute the least feel the brunt of its effects?
For us here in the Caribbean, climate change and its devastating impacts are our new normal.
Hope is still the strongest currency in these parts. But a devaluation of life can come if the world sells the people short. With the realities of modern times, forever no longer has the same currency it had a generation ago.
Rolling on the way through my journey.
Welcome back to the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Festival, where it's the live book reading, open mic, and featured author event. We're coming to you from the Spiceland Mall, the food court area. Come on down and join us. But if you're joining us on GIS Television, GIS Online, Mikey Live, and Party Grenada, we welcome all of you. A special good afternoon to those of you in the diaspora, especially our authors, writers, and architects of the spoken word. Trust you can join us next time when we do this. So we continue our conversation with our featured author this afternoon, Mr. Roger Bayer. When we left, we were talking about, he gave us excerpts from his work, Tattooed Memories. So, Mr. Bayer, we could call you a Vietnam vet. It would be right to call you a Vietnam vet. I'm sure most people in Grenada might be surprised to see, oh, I didn't know that. And of course, you're reading your stories from it for us this afternoon. But in terms of publishing, as we look on all the published list of works from Amazon and so on, and we see Tattooed Memories and Granny's Bathroom, they're right up there, getting rave reviews. I'm seeing 5 and 6 stars and folks giving really, really, really great reviews of those books. How does it make you feel, and for publishing and authors in Grenada, and probably just how organized it should get?
Well, Brenda, this is one of the rewards. This is one of the rewards of publishing a book. Although you put out a book and you hope your book would sell and you want to make some money from the sales, the reward is when people appreciate your work. As I said before, I hadn't done this all my life. And somebody would email you, or they would give you a review on Amazon. Of course, the reviews are used for your future marketing.
Right.
When somebody looks at the Amazon platform, which in fact is international, Brenda, this morning I woke up to check my account, and I saw that somebody in India had bought my book.
Yeah.
A Kindle copy of Tattooed Memories. And I'm so intrigued by that. Who's this person? How did they find out about the book?
Right.
So having your books up on the Amazon platform, people can see your work. They go there, they give you the reviews. And human nature being what it is, if you see a book being reviewed and it's 5-star, you'll probably pay more attention than if it's at 1.5 stars.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's very important for us writers. And also, who knows, somebody might see the book and say, this might make a good movie.
Correct.
I might get a call from somebody asking me for my copyright and
Correct.
giving me movie rights.
Correct.
So it's very important to us. And those of us that have our books up there, we check every day.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And based on that, Brenda, I want to take this opportunity to talk about our group that we formed recently. Grenadian published authors, a group of us got together and decided, look, we need to take the bull by the horns.
Absolutely.
And do something for ourselves. It's the year 2019, and it's time that we have Grenadians writing about our own stories and our own life. In the past, you'd have people coming on here doing it for us. It's not that I'm against anybody coming on here and writing, but if we have competent people, why not?
Yeah. We need the organic experience of our writers.
Yes, and in this week's events, when I saw a 12-year-old girl reading poetry from her head, not having a script in her hand, I mean, it almost brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
There were 3 or 4 other young men who were not standing up on the block. They were reading their poetry to us.
No, we just had Dante here.
Dante is a fine example of that,
Yeah.
one of the best.
Yep.
And in keeping with what I'm saying now, we formed this organization, Grenadian Published Authors, a group of
Grenadian
us,
Published Authors.
Grenadian Published Authors. We are now evolving, to get registered, and the Cultural Foundation has embraced us. Thanks again that have included us in this event that can give us some publicity.
Yeah.
But I can't sit here and not mention some names.
Sure, go right ahead.
We have some people. This is our core group. David Ambrose. I have to say David is our main foot soldier. David is our go-to man. For example, our event last Tuesday at TAMCC was arranged by David.
Right.
So David is our go-to man. He's one of the founders of this group. David Ambrose, Dr. Wendy Crawford Daniel, Ron Antwine, Karen Steele, Cindy McKenzie, Camu McBarnett, Cassandra Smith, Amy Jones, Anna Levy, Maureen St. Clair, Sulin Lo Shishong, Rita Joseph, Esther O'Neill, Amy Jones, and some guy called Roger Bayer. This is the core players in the group.
Wonderful.
And we have some of us reading here today.
Yes.
Again, you just heard David. This has been a great week for us. We had the event at TAMCC on Tuesday. We had over 40 people attend. Book readings, signings, and sales of our books. Then we had that wonderful function at Port Louis on Thursday, where the Cultural Foundation put it on for us, and we even had wine and pizza and nice socialization.
The libation got the authors flowing. Right.
People laughed and interacted, and so. And we went up to the country, some of us, and read at schools.
Nice.
Which is fantastic again.
I saw that, a lot of that on Facebook, and the students seem to be enjoying that.
And these are things that we can do.
Yes.
Yes. And then today, of course, again, culminates today for us. And we are so appreciative and want to make full mileage of it. So these are the names of the main players.
Yeah.
And we have a database showing over 70 Grenadian writers already that have been calling in. People have been posting on Facebook.
Fabulous.
These people have wrote stories and put them home on the shelf. There's nobody to push it for them. They don't know how to go about it.
Yes.
In the day and age we live today, and we can help.
I remember last year, as you mentioned, putting stories on the shelf last year or year before, the Grenada Cultural Foundation, they featured a poet here at the live reading competition. And this woman had wrote over 50 poems. And nobody knew who she was, but they found her, thankfully. So those are the kind of things we want to eke out, because of course it is part of our culture and our heritage.
But Brenda, I tell people all the time that we've been some 45 years independent. Independence can't be having a parade every year, hoisting our flag, cooking some oil dung, or dancing on a stage. Now, we can do that and have fun, and we should do that.
Right.
But we should not leave it there until next year to do the same thing again.
Right.
In between, we have to write our stories. In between, we have to consider our court, the CCJ, things like that. That's what independence is.
Yeah, yeah.
Believing in ourselves.
Yeah.
So we are very proud in our little group that we've taken the bull by the horns to go forward.
Wonderful.
And just in parallel with that, I want to mention something fantastic that happened in 2017 when a non-profit organization, Room to Read, came down here and formed a group using two professionals, Ricardo Keynes Douglas, well-known writer, playwright, and storyteller, and Stacy Bayer, a professional artist. And Ricardo Keynes Douglas put together the writing part, and Stacy the illustration part.
Yeah.
And today, Brenda, there are 13 books by these young people that have been distributed to public primary schools in Grenada out of that effort.
Yeah.
So hats off to them. You know, this is the type of thing we want to encourage.
Yeah. When you go into some of those libraries that Room to Read are a part of, you see Grenadian authors litter those libraries, and I think that's where we need to be heading to.
Could you imagine a young person going to the school library and seeing a book written by somebody sitting on 2 desks away from them?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So we are continuing here. Our featured author is Mr. Roger Bayer, and he's on the couch. He's not leaving because that's what featured mean. You shall be featured over and over and over and over. But we have some, of course, it is a live book reading program. We have the open mic session where we have authors and poets coming to do the present you with their literary works. And our next author is Reverend Harold Andrews. Reverend Andrews is a director on the board of the Grenada Cultural Foundation, and he has already stepped up to the mic and is ready to treat us with his literary works. Good afternoon, Reverend Andrews, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Brenda. Thank you very much. The poem I'm going to be reading is entitled Coming Home. Arrived early at JFK, hoping there'll be no delay on my way to Morris Bishop International on a Thursday. A long line of people at the counter to be checked in. Did my best to calm the excitement welling up within. Boarded JetBlue at 9 in the morning, scheduled to arrive in Grenada long before evening. Lucky to be seated next to a window. Don't intend to ask the flight attendant for a pillow. Determined to be awake during the flight, I leaned back and prayed that everything will be all right. Peering through the glass, I saw the sea far below, while clouds raced by as white as snow. The powerful engines of the Airbus could hardly be heard, but near me, a man snored loudly as he slumbered. His wife gave him the elbow. He stopped for a moment and continued the guttural sounds without abatement. As we flew over the Bermuda Triangle, I became anxious. Those around me appeared not to care or be nervous. I thought of aircrafts said to have disappeared there before. Could that just be folklore? I awoke with the captain announcing, "Fasten seatbelts, be prepared for landing." I became overwhelmed with joy and thanksgiving as I look forward to enjoy my homecoming. Thank you.
We took that ride with you, and we went through all the bumps and sights and so on. Is that an actual homecoming?
Yes, I returned home in 2014.
Right.
After being away for 33 years in
the
U.S.
Wow. Wonderful. Yes. Well, that was quite riveting. I was on that plane with you.
Thank you.
And you know, that's what, as you're on your feet there, and as Mr. Bayer was reading about the war as well, that's what reading does. You know, it takes you, I told people, I traveled with books before I took a plane, you know, as a young girl, because they just take you to these places and these experiences and these spots. So I was definitely on that ride with you. So you have something else to share with us?
Yes, I have another poem. It's called the Old Silk Cotton Tree. It's a tree I grew up being very familiar with because originally I'm from Annandale in St. George's. And that silk cotton tree was right there.
A landmark.
So
yes.
I sort of, every time I come back to Grenada, I will look for the tree. So I want to tell you something about this old silk cotton tree.
Wonderful.
Around the sharp bend, on the road to Annandale Falls, once stood this old silk cotton tree. Long branches outstretched like the tentacles of an octopus. It housed wild animals roaming free. Towering over the thick, verdant vegetation, it could be seen far and wide, a landmark in the community, presiding over all that betide. The buttress roots of the silk cotton tree enclosed many rooms like those in a house. Stories were told how Laja Bless and Sukuya lived there as though they were in a penthouse. Yeah. Youngsters and adults who passed by once said they heard a baby cry. Seized with great fright, they took off as birds in swift flight. Many times when the rains came pouring down, the unsuspecting sought refuge from the deluge in the rooms of the old silk cotton tree. Before long, they complained of chills running down from head to spine, swearing they had heard grunts coming from smelly swine. Those unfortunate souls, covered with goosebumps all over, rushed out in panic to escape the foul odor. And so it was on a pitch black night, calamity visited the old silk cotton tree. Its trunk and limbs engulfed in fire that climbed higher and higher. The firestorm worked its way from top to bottom. Some say started by a jealous phantom, angry at the notoriety of the invisible inhabitants residing in the old silk cotton tree. Beware of any old silk cotton tree. Sound advice from Uncle Terry. Many might disagree that evil lurks at its base, and so they walk by without haste. But better be safe than sorry, for you never know what might happen if you tarry. So run as fast as you can, whether it is in the night or in full light of the sun. For if you do not, crapo might smoke your pipe. Then you will regret that you did not heed the hype from tales told by the elders in the moonlight under the mango tree of the haunted old silk cotton tree. Ha 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 ha!
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Have you ever thought of doing like an audio version of your writings?
Yes, I've started. I have a
Yes.
small recording studio in my home, so I've started putting together some of that in audio.
Absolutely. That is just so riveting. And many of us have heard those tales of the old silk cotton tree in Annandale. I first heard about it as a Form 2 student at the Anglican High School. Yes. People who lived there was telling us how they run by, how they didn't dare stay out late at night, etc. So it's part of folklore.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And of all the silk cotton trees in Grenada, I think that one is the most notorious.
Yes, it is. I think a plaque should be put up there. Really.
Yes.
to commemorate
Yes.
this old silk cotton tree.
Well said. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Grenada Cultural Foundation. Good. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Father Andrews.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much
it.
for the opportunity.
Yeah, Reverend Harold Andrews. Thank you so much for taking us past the old silk cotton tree safely. It is the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. We're coming to you live from the food court at the Spiceland Mall. And we'd like to say special thank you to the Spiceland Mall, the GIS, Courts Grenada Limited, Art and Soul, where you can get some of the finest books on island and many of our local authors as well, the Grenada Tourism Authority, and the National Lotteries Authority. We continue with the open mic at this time. We'd like to invite an author, another author, one of other authors. She is a retired judge. And so it is very natural for judges to become authors because that is what they do. And we would like to welcome to the open mic Mrs. Rita Joseph-Olivetti.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming to share with us. So tell us your book, tell us of it, and then you read an excerpt for us.
Thank you. My book is entitled The Red Door, and essentially it is what I call it, the trials and temptations of a young woman growing up in Grenada in the late 60s. Her name is Jessica Cummins. She came from an impoverished family in the country, but she was very bright. She got a good education, and she thought that that would be enough to get on in the world. Sadly, that did not happen. She was faced with certain choices, which saw her leaving Grenada and going to the British Virgin Islands. In the book, as I said, it's entitled The Red Door. And the red door is a picture, is the prison door. In fact, it is the prison door of the British Virgin Islands. And Jessie tells you her story in first person from the prison door, from behind the prison walls, in a series of flashbacks.
Intriguing.
I will read basically from behind Jessie's first night in prison. The chapter is called Behind the Red Door. Keys rattled noisily, and equally noisy footsteps thudded on the tiled concrete floor outside my cell, calling me back. I sat up. A guard with a proud, stern face stood outside, a plastic tray in hand. "Number 5, your dinner," she yelled, and pushed the tray through the purpose-built grating in the door. "I'm not deaf. What's she shouting so for?" "I see you new here, number 5, she continued, surveying my person with bold eyes. "In half an hour, we have roll call. The alarm will sound to say that supper is over. I'll return to unlock your door. You're the only one in the high security block for now. When the siren goes off the second time, you will go out of your cell and stand at the entrance gates of the block. You will not go into the prison yard. You will not speak to anyone. Do you understand, number 5? You will not pass go. You will not collect any money. But this not Monopoly we playing in Lucy's home." She waited, looking me full in the face, and I nodded. "Number 5, you must answer aloud," she admonished, "not shake your head. Number 5, you understand the instructions I just gave you, or you want me to repeat them?" "I understand, officer," I said, meek as new cow's milk. Satisfied that she had done her duty, she clumped away. I was not hungry, but I took the tray, sat on the edge of the bed, and examined its contents. A fat slice of Johnny Bake, 2 wedges of pale yellow cheddar cheese, and a large enamel mug of something hot, which turned out to be lemongrass tea. How odd! My very favorite supper as a child. I closed my eyes and inhaled the warm, homely scent. I saw Mammy bending over the coal pot on its stand in the outside kitchen, a shed really, turning the Johnny Bake she had made in the black cast iron pot, and me making the lemongrass tea, whilst the brats ran around the yard with half an ear alert for Mammy's call that the food was ready. I remember that at the table I poured out a cupful for a little one, and as his eager fingers grasped the tin cup, he cried out, "Ew!" Mammy turned in haste. "What happened, son?" she asked. "It's too hot. Sister Jessie make it too hot," the mite sobbed. I felt bad. Mammy glared at me. "Jessie, you forget to fan the tea. You burn the child. Your head in the sky as always." Mammy jostled me aside, took up the painful cup, grabbed a larger vessel, and began to fan the hot liquid, holding the cup high and pouring its contents smoothly from one vessel to another, cooling it without spilling a drop. I always marveled at that feat. The alarm sounded, a discordant noise, impossible to ignore. The warder returned, took up my clean tray, nodded with satisfaction, as a nurse would at an obedient patient, unlocked my door, and went away. The alarm brayed a second time, a donkey in hysterics. "Now, Jessie, strut your stuff, girl. Don't let them know how you're shaking inside." I stood up, gritted my teeth, and walked out of my cell. It was a long walk. I went to the gates and gazed through the bars out into the prison exercise yard. With a lot of bustle and chatter, many women were moving around, forming themselves into 2 lines. I sensed the instant and short-lived hush that greeted my presence. Then I heard the mutterings. "She young, we? She good looking too? What you say she do again? I don't believe it, man. She must be wicked like hell. I hear she come from Dung Island, the Spice Island to be exact. And I didn't know the people there so worthless," and more in the like vein. Thank you.
Thank you very, 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 very much. Where can we find your book? And what inspired you to write that, first of all?
Well, that's interesting. As sitting on the bench, one deals with many types of cases, and I'm talking of the criminal court. And after I retired, I thought, we hear the voices of the persons who are charged, the accused people. But do we really hear the voices?
Right.
Do we really know what really went on in a court of law? We hear the lawyers talk, we hear the defense speak, prosecution, defense. We seldom hear the victim or the accused. And sometimes in my career, I have come across young women who have been charged with some serious offense and they end up in prison. And the idea came to me that what if we heard the story from a convicted person herself?
Right.
what would it look like? How does that person feel? So I tried to envisage a situation. As I said, I built this Jessie from an amalgam of many experiences and came up with this young woman, and I'm trying to tell the story, stand in her shoes, in other words, and tell the story, as I said, and a story that we would not necessarily hear in the press. Absolutely. Because no one, or people seldom bother to sit with an accused person, visit the prison, and really speak to that person to understand why, what happened, how did you end up here.
Right.
So that was the inspiration.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing that. And I mean, if after sitting through your hundreds of cases on the bench, this could be your, your revolving door of all those events. Very well done. Very well done.
Thank you very much.
Done. Yes. Thank you very much. Retired judge, now author, Miss Rita Joseph-Olivetti. It is the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival, coming to you live from the Spiceland Mall. It is so powerful this afternoon. I've done many of these. They always are, but there's something about this afternoon that's very, very, very powerful. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
rides on the rays of the sun here. So too does the resilience of the people. But in the battle against climate change, will hope and resilience be enough when the lives of those who contribute the least feel the brunt of its effects?
For us here in the Caribbean, climate change and its devastating impacts are our new normal.
Hope is still the strongest currency in these parts. But a devaluation of life can come if the world sells the people short. With the realities of modern times, forever no longer has the same currency it had a generation ago.
Rolling on the way through my journey, I got a triple OG sitting right beside me. This old man, he played fall, he playing knick-knack on my door. Raises of white noise, light up the world. Here we go, and I follow the sun, 'cause it's bright on the other side of my window.
To the Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Live Book Reading event. We're coming to you live from the Spiceland Mall, Montrouge, Grand and St. George. Those of you who are coming on down to the mall, yeah, come on down. You know, it's bustling down here, lots of activities, so we'd be really happy if you can join us. But if you are with us on GIS Television, on Mikey Live, and on Party Grenada, we welcome you as well. We continue with our live or open mic, and so at the mic, we have Jennifer Thomas, and Jennifer is here. She's a poet, and she's here to give us some of the spoken word. Good afternoon, Jennifer. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to treat us with this afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I just want to give God thanks for this opportunity where I can participate in such a grand event. My name is Jennifer Charles Thomas, and I'm from Mount Parnassus originally. I am an aspiring writer. I love writing poetry, and I believe that I have the ability to also do stories. Basically, I'm going to do two of my poems, and the first one is entitled Women of This Nation, You Are God's Creation. First, I will say it is because of the fact that I looked towards the women, my sisters in this country, and looking at the way in which they have been, some of them has been brought down in terms of partners, husbands, friends, relationship, wives, and in terms of which they attire themselves, I decided I wanted to do this poem to elevate women's mentality, lift it up, to see that they will make some form of change in their thinking. Okay? Thank you. Women of this nation, you are God's creation. Every woman, every girl, you are more precious than rubies, diamonds, and pearls. You're an angel without wings. And when you walk, you glow like the stars that shine bright in the sky. You're a rose, and every man knows. Girl, let no man abuse you. Give him no cause to accuse you. Let no one put you down because you're a queen and you wear a crown. Your bodies are the temple of the living God. You must keep it holy and acceptable unto him. Hold your head up high. Walk proud. Don't look down to the ground. Look up to the sky. Keep your virginity. Some people have a problem with that, but it is for the younger girls who have not yet attained such responsibility. Keep your virginity. Let no man take it from thee, except your husband, of course. Put your trust in the Lord. Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Women of this nation, you are God's creation.
Thank you so very much. And you have another piece for us?
Yes, I do. And this one is entitled Obstacles.
Obstacles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obstacles. Obstacles. Obstacles are like hindrances or distraction in your way. You can either run away from it or jump over it, or you can stand up and face it. You may say this man, woman, or thing is an obstacle in my way. It's like a pain in the neck, a problem that just wouldn't go away. Obstacles are things that consume us, keeps us back, hold us down. We've got to let go. We can't keep holding on. You must keep focus. You can't give up. You've got to press your way through. Why give up now because of some obstacle? Don't stop fighting. Hold on and never let go. Obstacles may come, and some will go. Know your obstacle. Don't sit on it, nor let it sit on you. Don't let it ride you, nor overtake you, neither keep you back, nor hold you down. Rise above it. Be on top, because you will never get anywhere if you allow obstacles to control your destiny.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And so you say that you have an interest in also writing, you're also doing published works.
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. And how is that going?
It's going pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty
And
good.
where have you published any of your poems?
Well, self-published so far.
Right.
And I have also sold a couple copies of my poetry.
Wonderful.
Different Grenadians that are interested in reading.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And where do you get, what kind of vibrations, what sort of vibrations you get when you decide to pen one of these? Because these are so, deep and thoughtful.
Yeah.
And relevant too.
Relevant.
Yes.
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah.
I've gotten, in terms of what you are saying, quite a few people has said the same.
Mm-hmm.
That is my writing is very deep.
Yeah.
Because it comes from some of my experience also.
Okay.
And
right.
I get inspired by the Spirit of God. I am an evangelist. If I did not say earlier on.
Right.
I go around ministering to people who has problems within the country. Not only problems, but people that need advice, encouragement,
Right.
to strengthen them and to encouraging them to change their mentality. Right. Even if you were brought up in a certain way, in a certain home, you understand, you don't have to remain that way.
Right.
For example, if your dad is a man that will scandal his money and drink out all the money, like being a rum drinker, you don't have to be like that.
No.
You can rise above it. It's like an obstacle in your way. And, whatever area, whether it's poverty, you don't allow poverty to keep you down, to hold you back. You have to decide, I want to do better. I want to be the one to bring my family out of poverty, like Joseph in the Bible. You understand? So,
great example.
Thank you very much.
Great example. Great example. Thank you so much, Jennifer Charles Thomas. And remember the name.
Yes.
And we hope we shall continue to see you on more of these platforms.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
sharing with us. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it also.
All right.
Thank you.
you. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Miss Jennifer Charles Thomas. Of course, she shared some of her pieces with us, the spoken word. All right. Mr. Bayer, now I know Granny's bathroom, that's the last thing that we're going to get to. But in terms of tattooed memories, I know it is, I like the name Tattooed Memories because that's never going to leave you, is it?
Well, Brenda, Tattooed Memories, the name, and you hit the nail on the head, a book has to have a name.
Mm-hmm.
A book has to have a cover. For example, this cover picture was not the original cover picture.
Right.
I had my dog tags strewn on the ground and we took a picture of the dog tags.
Right.
Almost a few months before publication, somebody in the house said, let's use that picture instead.
Right.
Well, it's as though it was meant to be the picture.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Tattooed Memories comes from the fact that I'm writing about my memories.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people over and over, they are my memories.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them may not be 100% accurate.
Right.
When I got in touch with old comrades from the war, from the same platoon, the same unit, we had different memories, different recollections.
Yes.
You know, you go to a movie and you come out of it and 3 or 4 people have different, what they saw inside there. It's the same thing.
Yes.
But the memories, the tattoo now, a tattoo is an indelible mark. You put a tattoo on you, it's there for life.
Indeed.
Also, the tattoo is a drum ceremony that the military uses to call people to camp.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ah.
So I use
interesting.
that plus the marking that never goes away with my memories.
Ah.
So it's permanent. That's where it came from.
Right.
That's how it came about.
Wow. That is quite a revelation. I had no idea that there was another another way in which tattoo is used.
Yeah, everything sometimes you see people wonder, it's not just a picture, it's not just a name.
Exactly.
There's a reason for it.
And that's what books, that's what reading and written works is, really exposes to that whole universe. Because I tell people, computers will never, ever replace what's inside of books and pages.
And you know, Brenda, what is so exciting about writing? I tell people that you have to find a balance in the sense that an editor will try to help you.
Right.
And tell you a better way to put out your book and how to format it, etc.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't let the editor take your story.
No.
It's your story.
Correct.
And I had a big battle with my first editor. He was lopping things out, and I said, well, you know, how could he?
Yeah.
And one time he said, Roger, it's your book. I said, thanks.
Right, exactly.
So we have
and
to
you're
remember.
a true artist, because that's what artists, people who create, that's what they struggle with.
You have to actually please yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll compromise your experience and the authenticity of your presentation. So wonderful. We are getting ready. We're going to come back to Mr. Bai. Of course, we're closing off with him, but we are getting ready to continue our open mic sessions here this afternoon. Our next session comes from a dynamic group of individuals. We are going to be featuring the work of Mrs. Louise Sylvester, her daughter, a former chair of the Cultural Foundation and the Spice Mart Corporation, Mrs. Jocelyn Sylvester Gary. She will tell us some about the book, and it will be read by Miss Janice Martin, and a daughter of Miss Sylvester. So welcome to the entire family. An esteemed Grenadian family of educators, of artists, and of everything Grenadian. Mrs. Gary, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And indeed to have your mom with us this afternoon, present, and tell us about her book and what we can find in the pages.
Well, let me just say that it's not really, I would say it's not really a book as such, because it's, as you see, it's a very small manuscript.
Right. Just right.
Okay, are you
Perfect.
hearing now? Yeah, my mom is going to be 91 years in a couple of months, but she started penning her writing some time ago, and then she had a stroke. So we compiled it and put together what she had written, and we're just going to read a little bit from her writings.
Wonderful.
I did a little bit of the epilogue, so I'm just going to read it. I am not sure if my mother's urge to begin writing her book, as she always called it, came after she assisted her godfather, Mr. Code, with his own life story and his writings. She announced that she was going to tell her story and her own memoirs. My father was the educator in the family, but my mother was the teacher. She taught us piano, she taught us to read every night, and she told us lots of stories and challenged us to use our imagination. She was gentle but firm. She was the birth mother of 10 children, including twins. But she was also mother to many of her nieces, nephews, numerous boarders, and several in her care. At age 33, she became a widow, and she was now the main provider for her family of 9, one child having suffered a tragic death. At this age, Louise entered the workforce and began working at the Ministry of Agriculture. She later moved onto a job she most enjoyed. She worked among books at the public library, where she brought joy to hundreds of children all over Grenada, as she worked every Friday on the library's mobile unit. Indeed, she continued to nurture a love of reading in all of her children. An opening for growth and development came, and she seized the opportunity with both hands.
After so many years, she became a student once more, qualifying for scholarship to attend college in Trinidad. She graduated as a certified court stenographer. To us children, it was another proud moment to see Mom head into court with a special tiny recording machine after having driven her younger kids to school. This phase in Trinidad was a great break for my mom. Her next break came when she migrated to Canada. And as in Grenada, she continued to mother many sons and daughters beyond her own. She actually became the Toronto Railroad, as she facilitated so many of her friends and children of friends from the Caribbean in getting to Toronto. She has traveled extensively, she reads a lot, and throughout all her life, her realization is God answers prayer. She returned to Grenada to live and enjoy her friends, her family, her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I am proud of my mom.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gary. Thank you so much. And we now hear from Miss Janice Martin. She, of course, is a sibling, not a sibling, a friend of the Sylvesters. So with Mrs. Martin.
Okay, this is from chapter 1 called My Birth. I was born on Saturday, 22nd December, 1928 at 8:30 p.m. I was told by my mother that she was very sick. In fact, for a few days, she did not even know she had a baby. At that time, there were not many facilities at the hospital in Carriacou, so the doctor had to send her down to Grenada. In those days, she had to travel on a sailing boat that sailed with the wind. So it took the whole of the next day, which was a Sunday, before she got to the hospital in St. George's. She said that she was unable to nurse me or care for me, so she had a maid travel with her. Her name was Cleopatra Steele, and she worked with my mother from the time I was born until I got married and left home. My mother had 11 children after me. Most of them died in infancy, but 6 of us are alive: Sybil, Olive, Phyllis, Roger, and Joy. There was also a Bridge, who was my father's son. He lived with us too. Rose, my older sister, was also my father's child. She grew up with his mother. Cleo took care of all of us. We called her Nurse, and that was her name to this day. That was chapter 1. I'm just going to read to you chapter 4. It's entitled School in Grenada. At the early ages of 8 and 7, Sybil and I were boarders at the Solomon family who lived at Grenville Street in St. George's. Mrs. Solomon was an elderly lady in her 80s, always complaining about rheumatism in her knees, especially on rainy days. I used to feel so sorry for her. Mrs. Solomon's mother lived with her. She was almost 100 years old. I remember her sitting in her chair all day long. On a few days, she was put outside to get some sunshine. Her son David also lived there. We called him Uncle David. He was a grown man going to work. There was also a daughter, Teresa, who had 2 girls, Elma and Cecile. Teresa did not work. She was a little eccentric. It was Teresa whom we call Tanty who took care of us. She combed our hair and sent us to school. Cecile went to the convent with us, so we had company. Elma went to another secondary school located right on Halifax Street called Miss Nunez School. I remember the first day we went to school. Cecil walked us up on St. John Street. We were supposed to meet her at 12 noon to go home for lunch. So when we came out by the back gate and we saw St. Jules Street, we did not know we could go home that way. We were confused and immediately turned back, saying the road we came up on that morning had lots of stones. We walked around lost, searching until we found the street with the stones, St. John Street. That created much laughter for many days since the streets are side by side. And as we all know, St. Jude Street is right in front of the convent. My father, being a businessman, came to St. George's often to get certain goods for the store in Carriacou. When he came down, he visited us. We were always glad to see him. The boat came from Carriacou on Thursdays. So every Thursday we would stand by the window looking out to see when the boat passed by and praying that he would be on that boat. I remember one Thursday, I was feeling very sad and homesick. So when I saw the boat passing by, I ran into the bedroom, kneeled down, and just said, "Dear Jesus, please help Daddy to come." The hours went by, no Daddy. But later that night, when we were just about to go to bed, Daddy came. Oh, how happy we were. At an early age, I knew that God answers prayers. Daddy spent a little time with us and then left, as it was late. But the next day he came to visit us again before leaving for Carriacou. He always gave us pocket change, which we were glad to have, as we used the money to buy toffee from Mr. Tommy's shop on our way to school. Every day, Cecily's mother gave her a penny when we were going to school, but Sybil and I had to wait until our father came down from Carriacou to get our change. This was generally every end of the month. Now, Cecily was very spoiled. The day her mother didn't have a penny to give her, she would cry and scream, threatening not to go to school. And the mother borrowed the penny from her brother David, or Maria's sister, who lived there. I can't remember what year we left the Solomons, but we stayed there for a few years because we both made our first communion and confirmation while we lived there. I remember how strict Mrs. Solomon was with us when we were going to make our first communion. We had to say the rosary each morning and night for 3 days before our first communion morning. On the first communion morning, we were not allowed to put anything in our mouths. She would say, "Just shake some water in your mouth and spit out." Not a drop was supposed to go down our throats. She made one big fuss because one of us had a pin in her mouth. No toothbrush, nothing was supposed to touch your mouth until after communion. We then had to drink some water after receiving communion before we ate anything. We also had to get up early to go to Mass for 3 mornings after the communion day. We went to Carriacou every holiday, Easter, August month, and Christmas. Each time we came back to Grenada for school, we cried so much. We traveled on these sailing boats, and I always got seasick. Sometimes there would be goats or cattle down in the porthole of the boat, and in the night one could hear the mooing or the bleating of these animals. In addition to the rocking of the boat, I always dreaded these days. I liked traveling in the day better because I could always stay up on deck and feel the fresh sea breeze. In the night, we had to go below deck where we had to put up with the scent of the animals. This made me even more sick. If the boat left Carriacou in the evening, we would reach Grenada by the next morning. And if it left in the morning, we would arrive into Grenada at night time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Janice Martin. Of course, she is a friend of the Sylvester family. And that is the works of Mrs. Louise Sylvester, 91 years old. And we heard an overview of the book and of the life of Mrs. Sylvester from her daughter, Mrs. Jocelyn Gary Sylvester. Thank you so very much. Thank all the authors who have done the live readings with us this evening, the poets as well. We really, really appreciate it. Our featured author is Mr. Roger Bayer, and we will come back. We have another author to read for us before we get back to Mr. Bayer. That's Mr. Jeffrey Gilbert. But we take a quick break, and we'll be right back here at the Spiceland Mall and continue with the Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. We'll be right back.
Hope rides on the rays of the sun here. So too does the resilience of the people. But in the battle against climate change, will hope and resilience be enough when the lives of those who contribute the least feel the brunt of its effects?
For us here in the Caribbean, climate change and its devastating impacts are our new normal.
Hope is still the strongest currency in these parts. But a devaluation of life can come if the world sells the people short. With the realities of modern times, forever no longer has the same currency it had a generation ago.
Rolling on the way through my journey. I got a triple OG sitting right beside me. This old man, he played four. He playing knick-knack on my door. Raises a white noise, light up the world. Here we go, here we go. And I follow the sun, 'cause it's bright on the other side of my window.
In Grenada, like in many places in the Caribbean, there are continuing concerns about rising temperatures and the increasing frequency of storms.
In growing up as a young girl on the Carnage, the changes, I always tell them the major change started with Hurricane Janet, September. September is a very terrible month for Grenada with hurricanes. Price of progress is always very high. And to me, the whole environmental problem in the Caribbean and in particular in Grenada come with the price of progress.
The country was devastated, almost complete devastation. In some villages, first of all, every village in Dominica, every street, every cranny, every person in Dominica was impacted by the hurricane.
I know myself from since this is why growing up, coming here, so I used to come and enjoy yourself at the beach, and bathe and eat and drink and enjoy yourself and have fun. You never never so meet much with the sea, but I know the water get rough. The climate got changing.
People here have created their own way of life, overcoming great challenges over the centuries. They are at one with nature, and nature is at one with them.
There are farmers who have irrigation systems. There are farmers who are close to rivers, but there are also farmers who depend solely on rainwater, our rainwater harvesting to grow their plants. And I can tell you over the last year or so, and a lot of farmers have not been able to reach their targets in terms of production.
They followed the sun and the moon and the stars to maintain their
Welcome
livelihoods.
back. We're here live at the food court of the Spiceland Mall here at Grenada, and it is the 9th annual Aunty Tek Spiceword Literary Festival. Today, the live book reading and featured author event that is closing off the week of activities. Quite a week it has been, and again, thanks to all the authors, the spoken word artists, and everyone who participated in the event of this week. We'd like to say special thank you to Spiceland Mall. Thank you very, very much. The GIS, Courts Grenada Limited, Art and Soul, the Grenada Tourism Authority, the GTA, and the National Lotteries Authority, the NLA. So we'd like to thank you, everyone who has joined us on the GIS television, streaming online as well. Mikey Live is right there with you. And Party Grenada, we welcome you. Those of you just joining us, a good afternoon. We continue with the open mic session, and our next open mic feature is an author. The book Jungle Rescue was first released in 2013, and when many people saw this gentleman who had been a banker for over 20 years, they wondered, so where did he find the time to write this book and have all these thoughts? And here we are, all these years later, and he is on his 6th publication. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jeffrey Gilbert.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. As I stand here this evening, I just want to recognize my neighbor. It is only a few years ago I realized that right in my community, just about maybe less than 100 meters from my house, there is someone who has a wealth of experience, especially military experience. As a boy, I always dreamt about military stuff. I loved it. As a matter of fact, if I had my way, if my sister did not intervene, chances are I would have been in the United States Air Force. I really, really wanted to be a pilot. I really, really wanted to be. But of course, in those days, back then, your parents, boy, you're crazy, you don't even think about that. So obviously, I was coerced into something else. But not having been able to fulfill that dream, I got the opportunity to research and writing to actually live that kind of experience. Because since I've been writing, wherever I go, there are persons who ask me, which branch of the military have you served in? And they've asked the question because of the nature of what I write. I write a lot of action-packed thrillers, dramas, and of course, it has a strong military action base. This afternoon, I will read to you excerpts from The Bezatov Conspiracy. And just to give you an overview of what the book is about, it specifically speaks about a particular situation which affects every human being on the planet today. Not particularly in Grenada, but the world over. And I'm making reference to terrorism. It is a fact of life. It happens every day. Fortunately, it is not so prevalent in this part, but we cannot be complacent. So the Bezatov Conspiracy basically speaks about an American CIA agent working with his Russian counterpart to capture a leading jihadist terrorist, a mastermind by the name of Jatan Bezatov. Now, the story unfolds with a number of characters. Of course, you have a protagonist and you have an antagonist. And my scene today that I'm reading from is a piece taken, an extract taken not too far from St. Petersburg in Russia. So I will take you to the many parts and the many scenes of the Bezatov Conspiracy. Enjoy. The trees swayed in the boisterous night wind as the men wrapped up the meeting. They knew that a tremendous burden weighed down on their shoulders. For the American, there is an additional sense of urgency in the meeting. His first stop is the U.S. Embassy in St. Petersburg. The highly sensitive information he now has makes it absolutely imperative that the CIA, the FBI, and the Pentagon be notified of these new developments. In a previous conversation, Melville Zadev told Ambassador John Pensville that there are some potentially troubling developments brewing in the Russian Federation. Melville reflected on their discussion as they trekked out of the woods. So you're absolutely certain that Avanov and the other state officials are unaware of the presence of the Maquis network? The information in my possession clearly indicates that an intricate web of diversionary tactics has been spun. The key players in the GRU, the FSO, who are all willing to confront the Maquis network and collaborate with Washington, have been routinely sidelined. Some have been transformed to totally unrelated positions. Others have even been forced into early retirement. I am in total agreement with you, Melville. These are really serious matters. They can adversely impact our relations with the Kremlin. We are still working on ways to improve our relations. Only yesterday, Minister Sergei Vasilyev commented on our efforts to maintain a healthy relation with Washington. We just can't afford to have another crisis. The CIA man bumped into an old decaying log. The last discussion with Ambassador Pensville was still very much on his mind. As they continued to weave the way out of the forest, Vladimir Slavankovic spoke to his American partner. Be careful, comrade. You cannot afford to get injured now. Our work has just begun. Absolutely. We've got some tough days ahead of us, replied Melvin. Vladimir kept a steady pace. The trek out of the rendezvous point was extremely rugged. The former Russian Navy man is still a good hiker. At 63, he can still give Melville Zadev a run for his money. And on several occasions, he has proven that he is still a rough, dogged street fighter, willing to confront any adversary. They now have a new partner, a man by the name of Igor Leninichi. And as the hunt for the elusive leader of the Maquis network gathered momentum, Zadev and his trusted Russian counterpart experienced heightened anxiety levels. The chilling revelation by the new defector gave them a distinct advantage, and they certainly intend to use it in the hunt for Mr. Bezatov. Melville and Vladimir knew that another dramatic twist in the intriguing saga in the Bezatov conspiracy was about to unfold. When they left the forest cabin, a dull mask of darkness engulfed the entire area. Vladimir recommended an alternative route back to the main road. The GPS indicated that they were some 9.5 kilometers away from the nearest commercial center. Slavankovic led the way, Zadev following closely. The Russian wanted to get out of the woods rather quickly. A chilly rain doused the canopy of tall, swaying trees, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. Imagine the cold. Igor Leninichi was in a great hurry. The number 11 metro train leaves the Moscow station in about half an hour. The trek leading out had many obstructions and forest debris. He made it out of the path where the vegetation appeared to be freshly cut. Leninichi froze. The hair and the back of his neck stood up like tiny needles. He picked up a smell, the smell of smoke, cigarette smoke. A creepy feeling of imminent danger swept all over him. Someone is smoking a cigarette, and the cool night wind drifted the nauseating odor through the air. The defector broke into a run. His heart was racing. The pounding in his chest caused him to become dizzy. His legs became heavy, and his breathing labored. Igor was really exhausted. He kicked into survival mode, crouched in the darkness, and waited for the stalker's next move. Moments later, the tightness and discomfort in his chest subsided. Igor reflected on the meeting with Slavankovic and Zadev, then reached for the Makarov pistol nestled in the shoulder holster beneath his coat. A sudden snap in a patch of vegetation. And to his right, a big, dark, towering figure moved. Igor froze. He knew that sound. It was a coarse, heavy boot scraping onto an obstructing metal object. Another piece of incongruent forest litter, carelessly left behind by a camper. Igor has been a hunter all his life, and he knew the forest like his own backyard. An adversary is on his trail, and he needs to move very quickly. Igor dropped on both hands and knees to make himself a smaller target. He crawled around until he got to a huge boulder. Hiding in a cluster of giant oak trees, just to the right of Igor's position, the man steadied himself. He looked into the sniper scope again. The target proved to be a bit more elusive than he had anticipated. It has been quite a long while, and this meant that his other assignment would be affected. He had to find a way to take out this target. He pulled the zipper in his old camouflage bag and took out a small canister. The man quickly donned the gas mask. He activated the triggering device, then hurled the canister through the air. The assassin picked up the rifle and waited. The tear gas grenade landed about 6 meters from where Igor was crouching. He got a whiff of the pungent 6-million gas and instinctively jumped to his feet. Sadly, Igor only made it halfway up. The sniper took careful aim, then squeezed the trigger. The 7.62 millimeter round ripped away Igor's skull, killing him instantly. He slumped to the forest floor, his body cushioned by a nest of rotten forest debris. The man kissed the stock of the rifle, wiped it lovingly with an old oily rag before slipping it into the synthetic case. When Zadev and Slavankovic heard the gunshot, they both knew that it did not come from the hunter's rifle. What they did not know was that the man who had just given them some key details on the operations of the Maquis network had his brains blown out by a paid assassin. Another intriguing episode in the complex and sinister mosaic had fallen into place, and the dreams of Jatam Bezatov, leader of the Maquis network, appeared to be one step closer to a reality. The American looked at his Russian partner, then spoke. We must now ensure that the list of contacts we got from Igor is presented to the new head of the Russian security services. Vladimir nodded. Melville, I have a better appreciation and understanding of the way these bastards and crooks operate. At this time, I really don't know who the hell we can trust. I really don't know, Melville. I really don't know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you so much. You're very conversant with those Russian names, so so I'm sure your imagination and of course your research.
Of course.
All right, and Mr. Bayer's military winds blowing over in your
course,
yard,
right, of course,
because
in
you all
my
are
yard,
close
yes.
neighbors.
Yes.
So when is your next release?
Well, it should be in November.
November of this year?
Yes, November of this year.
Okay.
And
That's next week.
Well, yeah, like end of, yes. And I have a very interesting piece which I'm actually working on, which is a historical novel which sort of encapsulates all of the tumultuous days in Grenada.
Right.
A little bit of Fedon, and of course climaxing with the revolution, and
Right.
of course the intervention/invasion. So it's a very interesting piece, and I intend to have it published at least by March of next year.
Right.
I could give you a little snippet. The name is called Armor, Spice, and Valor.
Armor, Spice, and Valor. Interesting.
You can
That sounds
understand
like a movie.
You can understand the correlation, right? Armor, the warfare part, the spice, Grenada, and the valor, the bravery of our soldiers and persons who would have taken part in those tragic events.
And our people, of
And
course.
our people, of course,
Yeah.
most importantly.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Keep writing.
Of
Keep
course,
writing.
I will.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeffrey Gilbert, one of Grenada's most, we can use the word, prolific writers. Yes, he's fastly going to his 10th. So we are getting ready to bring the curtains down on the live book reading event and open mic, and a featured author with us today, Mr. Roger Bayer. Mr. Bayer, you've sat on the couch with me all evening. You've been a great host to all the featured authors and other folks of the spoken word who has come forth here. And so we'd like to close off by looking at your second publication, which is Granny's Bathroom, a publication, of course, of short stories, all the things you did in St. George's, or you know about St. George's as a boy. So just kind of encapsulate what we will find in Granny's Bathroom.
Well, Brenda, thanks a lot for that. I really enjoyed it this afternoon. I already planned that I've read something from Tattooed Memories. So instead of reading something from Granny's, why don't I just tell people what Granny is about?
Yeah, let us know what you find in the bathroom.
Yeah, because you read an excerpt, you read an excerpt, and what about the rest of the book?
Right.
So let me preempt your first question about the name of the book. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
You're sitting too close to me.
Yeah. Granny's Bathroom. I don't know if most people would recognize the house at the bottom of Lucas Street, behind the traffic point, the police traffic point.
Right.
That house is still there, and it looks that way.
It does.
It's pretty much abandoned now.
Right.
And that's how the house looks. If you go up Scott Street, behind the traffic point, the house is there at the bottom of Lucas Street, right?
Right. It's behind the policeman in the little house, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
It looks the same, actually.
It's exactly like that now.
Yeah,
It's overgrown and abandoned.
Right.
That was my grandparents' home. The very first story in my 15-story compilation is about an incident that took place in that bathroom when I was a 6-year-old boy. A true incident.
Right.
And when I put together the rest of it, I said to my family one day, you know something? I'm going to call it Granny's Bathroom.
Right.
And another reason I have to admit is that I dare anybody walking through a bookstore or shop that they see a book called Granny's Bathroom and they don't at least stop to see what the hell is this thing about.
What's inside?
So that's a homegrown marketing ploy on my behalf.
Yes.
But because time is upon us, I think what I'll do is I'll just explain about the book.
Yeah, sure.
The book is broken down into 3 parts. The first part is a section called Back Then, where I describe growing up. I was born on Scott Street, right in the middle of town. And the things that little boys did then, giving you a feel of the atmosphere of St. George's then.
Right.
When people lived in the town. The town was a clean place, sad to say.
Right.
It's not very much like that now.
No.
And we did things, we had a lot of fun. So Granny's Bathroom, first one, something happening there. The reader's going to have to pay a couple of dollars to find out. I'm not letting out secrets.
Right.
Then the second one is the weapon, the welcome, and the swim to Sandy Island. Sandy Island was an island formed by the dredging of the pier after Hurricane Janet, and an island was formed.
Yeah.
Every weekend, little boys swam out it, and that was our playground. That was our Disney World. And in that story, I have a well-known character called John Parks. I don't know if you remember John Parks. Or he was a guy that rode a bicycle around, and he was one of our famous St. George's character. He interacts in that story. And the weapon actually is an old caterpillar that we used to use as a clubhouse.
I see.
Hence, the weapon, the welcome, and the swim. The welcome was John Parks going out to meet Winston Churchill on a yacht, and what took place.
Okay.
Then the third story, Looking for Denny's Abraxa, is a story about some little boys who were in love with an older woman and would go down where she was living and fall down and try to catch her attention and stuff like that. I'm sure most little boys did those kind.
All the boys in town did that?
Yes, I think. I don't know about boys nowadays, but that was common in those days.
So back then.
Yeah. Then I have Dougie's Revenge. Dougie was a little boy who was forced to play hide and seek with older little boys and girls under pressure. But he had to go and play with them because he was afraid of them.
Ah.
And in my story, Dougie pulled off a little coup one day, and I call it Dougie's Revenge. Again, read the book, and you'll see what Dougie did. Then I have Treehouse. Little boys building a treehouse in Silver Sands. That's actually true again, behind the post office.
Ah.
I used to live in that house there.
Right.
We built, right behind there now. It's all cleared away for Silver Sands now.
Yeah.
But we built a treehouse there specifically to Mako people going into Joan's shop.
Miss Joan?
Miss Joan's
Miss
shop.
Joan, that's
That
still
is still there.
now?
Yes, that's right. So the whole story of Treehouse is of characters going into Joan's shop and what they were
Oh my
doing.
goodness, you all owe Miss Joan some royalties,
Right.
man.
Then I have Up to the Fort in a Gang. Little boys going up to the fort dressed in their new jeans and so pretending that they're in a gang. And when they reach up to the fort, they meet bigger boys in a real gang.
Ah.
And they had to kind of beat a retreat from Fort George.
Okay.
Then Let Sleeping Crates Lie is a story of young guys again walking around the carronage one day. In those days, Brenda, they had a crane that used to offload crates from the ships and so from the schooners. And they met a bunch of empty crates and kicked the crates overboard. The problem is it was close to the fire station.
Right.
And the firemen, the fellas that used to wear water boots in those days, they came down and they made those little boys strip down and swim for the crates.
Okay.
Now, they had to strip down and swim for the crates, which kind of gathered a crowd. So the story gives their interaction of what the people were saying in the crowd and so.
Knowing us, that must be rich.
A lot of fun.
The
and,
language must be.
Some of those guys are still alive and around,
I'm sure.
so yeah, you know. The matinee fee. The matinee fee is a story about some little boys going to matinee one afternoon with their 25 cents, and one of them lost his 25 cents, and what that meant to that little boy back then.
Ah.
Because it was the Empire Cinema,
Right.
and what it meant going to matinee, what you could buy, and what it entailed, and you know, going to matinee was like the big thing back in those days. So that's the matinee fee. Then I have a story called I Have It. This is based on an incident that took place in Liat when I was a pilot on the Avro.
Right.
A true incident that took place in St. Lucia.
Okay.
I was the first officer on that flight, and something happened, and of course, I didn't die, I'm here.
Oh.
But it's a very interesting story, and in writing these stories, Brenda, I'm writing about my life too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that covers the flying part there.
Yeah.
And then, so that is back then. Then I have 3 stories in a section called A Stretch of the Imagination. Yeah.
All right.
What I did here is I took Julian Fedor, The Sinking of the Bianca Sea, and something else, and said, suppose this is what really happened.
Ah, all right.
So I spun the stories on their heads
Okay.
and came up with my version
Oh, that should
of
be
what
interesting.
may have happened.
That should
So
be
that's a stretch
interesting.
of the imagination.
Right.
Then, to close it off, I said, Roger, you know something? You've written about things you know about.
Right.
I challenged myself to do some fiction.
Fiction. Mhm.
So I said, Roger, you get some characters, a storyline, a plot, and write some fiction. So I did 3 fictional pieces. The first one is called Brown Dog. It's about a stray dog living in the park. I don't know if any of you out there
Many
ever
stray
thought.
dogs still live in the park.
Any of you ever thought about the life of a stray dog?
No.
I mean, we see them every day. We chase them. We throw them 2 crumbs of bread. We tell them, get away from us. What about the dog's life?
Right.
How does this dog see us from his eyes? So this story is based on Brown Dog's home being invaded one day with West Indies is playing cricket in the park and what he had to go through.
Yeah.
Then
and they really come out during cricket and carnival.
yeah, but
eh?
I mean, I think I was able to put together quite a story because you had some other dogs coming from St. Jules Street
Oh, I see.
in a gang
Right.
who wanted to fight with Brown Dog because Brown Dog had a choice spot behind Mama's restaurant. Anyway, get a copy of the book, you'll find out what
All
happened.
right, we will.
And then I have one before last, I wrote about a story called Jar Washer.
Mhm.
It's about a car washer who happens to be a Rasta man.
Right.
And to talk about his business, which people may be surprised to know, is a business.
J-A-H.
J-A-H.
Not
Jar.
J-A-R. Okay,
No.
Jar.
Jar-
Rasta Jar.
Jar washer.
Right.
This business this Rasta man had, and how 5 years later when I returned home, how this business had developed.
Right.
So
Interesting.
it's a little plug for the little man, so to speak, that,
Right.
you know, don't write him off. He can develop a business
Correct.
too. And then I wrote
Absolutely.
a story called the pirate story to end it off. So that's Granny's bathroom.
Ah, nice.
nutshell.
So you set up Granny's bathroom really, really good for us. So we have to go on out and get our copy. Oh my goodness. It's been quite an afternoon. We're getting ready to pull the curtains down. But Mr. Bayer, again, congratulations. Don't put down your mic. You're not finished speaking. I know your voice must be tired. I do this as a profession, so it's just a little easier. You probably prefer to write more than speak. But in just, you know, looking at all your looking at your bio here, I mean, none of us in this life, or most of us who get through this life, the support of family and the people who influence us is really a big part of what we do. And so I would just like to ask you, you know, how has, you know, this part of your life been, you know, how has your family influenced you or inspired you?
Well, I have to go back to Tattooed Memories, and I wrote in my dedication to Tattooed Memories that the book was dedicated to some members of my family who had passed.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I said was that this book, Tattooed Memories, was inspired by my wife, Omen.
Yeah.
That's a fact of life. I'm not just saying that to say something nice.
Yeah.
She caused me to write it.
Right.
And she literally brought me an old computer one day and said, look, go and write your book. So she caused me to write it.
Yeah.
My daughters, Amanda and Stacy, fully supportive.
Yes.
Of, because I'm writing it for them, really.
Right.
So I have been blessed, and I mentioned that before when I came back from the war.
Mm-hmm.
I had strong support.
Yeah.
And everybody needs support, you know.
Indeed.
And I am one of those people that I have to be pushed to do things sometimes. So full kudos to my family. They supported me with in Granny's too and everything else. And of course, living in the main in a house with 3 women, they have me on my toes all the time, you know. They look after me and
you're blessed.
That type of thing, you know. So I am very, very happy to say that they are my support.
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. We really would like to congratulate you and the Grenada Cultural Foundation for having you as our featured author for the live book reading program, and of course the open mic for the poets and other authors as well here at the 9th annual Spiceword Literary Festival. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing.
Yeah.
Continue to write. I know I appreciate and respect your views on you being Morris Bishop's personal pilot, that it is a personal story, but just as a Grenadian who's really vested in the correcting the history of the period, and because he was such a central figure in it, I look forward to the day when someone like you would at least share something that we can put in our history books regarding our late Prime Minister.
Just let me say one thing, Brenda, before you sign off on me. It would be remiss of me not to thank you. You're a great professional. I really enjoyed this session. You know, you've interviewed me before, and you know how to get an interview out of somebody. Thank you again. And I want to thank the Cultural Foundation, not only on my own personal behalf, but on behalf of the Grenadian published authors for giving us this opportunity. You've opened the door to us. The very first time we went to Ms. Sherma Wells, she welcomed us and she gave us everything she promised us. So I want to say thanks again to the Cultural Foundation. Thanks to you, Brenda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bayer, and keep writing. So before we leave, of course, the hosts of this great week-long event would just like to pull the curtains down and say one final thank you. The CEO of the Grenada Cultural Foundation, Ms. Sherma Wells.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, those of you here first, because you took the time out to come out and be a part of this, so we pay attention to you, and thank you for your presence here. You have been a fabulous audience. To those of you out there on GIS Live, we thank you so much for the time you would have spent listening to our authors, hearing about their works, and I'm sure by now you've been captivated enough to head on down to Art and Soul, who carries quite a lot of local authors, and purchase a good read. Lots of choices for you, from intrigue, from intrigue to romance to just about everything you can think about Grenadian, historical, cultural. It's available out of our over 70 writers across the globe, including Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I want to thank our beautiful hosts, Brenda Batiste, for doing such an awesome job. The reason why we bring her back every year, because she does an awesome job, or else we wouldn't be having her here, you know that. So give her a big round of applause. We must thank the Grenada Published Authors Association for ensuring that our writers remain relevant within our society. It's a tough one, but they continue to persevere and bring us wonderful works. Most so, I want to thank Roger Bayer for agreeing to be our feature author. Sometimes we forget a lot of them until we see them again, and then remember that they are here with us and providing such a worthwhile service to our nation. Reading is extremely important. So, Mr. Bass, thank you so much for being a fabulous guest here. Give him a round of applause. I want to take the opportunity to thank the crew from GIS, Party Grenada, Nazim, and also Mikey Live. We've been live on GIS, live on Party Grenada, and live on Mikey Live. For those of you who don't know Nazim and Mikey, you have an opportunity here to see those guys, those handsome guys that are here with us here. Give them a round of applause, and the GIS staff as well. I also want to thank my small staff of the Cultural Foundation, Ann Byam, Shauna Noel, Anil Holder, John Ferreira. It's very small, and Donnelyn, of course, Henry, who's not with us, she's on vacation, for putting this festival together. We're small, but I say that we talawa, because we do a lot and we very much result-oriented. So staff, thank you. Give them a round of applause for me. You know, there's always that engine in the back that keeps the momentum of things. And that, my friends, happen to be our board, our chairman and our board of directors, our chairman, Carl Hostialik, and the rest of the board. We say thank you, madam, thank you to the board for keeping that engine moving, even in the hardest of times. You're always there to say, yes, let's make it happen. Want you to give a big round of applause to the Cultural Foundation, the chairman, Carl Hostialik, and Oboen. On behalf of the folks in GIS who is doing this job at this time, we thank you for devoting your time to us on this Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, continue to read. Continue to encourage our youngsters to indulge in the pages of the books. Let them go on the journeys as the writers take them to different places and explore what Grenada is all about to them. Do not fail them. Not allowing them and not encouraging them and not creating the enabling environment for them to read by purchasing the books for them, you're doing them an injustice. Words are powerful. Remember that. On behalf of everybody else, I'm Sherma Wells. Thank you so much for listening.
Grenada, it's coming as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture, and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019 and it's one full week of activities, vibes, and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth. And it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, Island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Ministers Address. October 27th, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concerts. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. And on November 2nd, it's National Youth Awards. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
This live stream was powered by PartyGrenada.com. This live stream was powered by PartyGrenada.com.